For over 60 years, Phoenix's Canyon Records has been at the vanguard of recording Native American music from all over the Americas, earning along the way a Grammy Award, being nominated for 30 more, winning 4 Indie Awards, the Arizona Governor's Award, and 33 Native American Music Awards, all while developing a catalog of hundreds of recordings representing nearly 100 tribes. But the whole thing started almost as an accident, as founders Ray and Mary Boley were asked to record a song by Navajo singer Edli Nate for the Phoenix Little Theater.
They both thought so much of Edli Nate's singing that they decided, let's release a record, by this singer. Not that they had any experience in Native American music, and they had released a few other records of other material, but this was really their first music-oriented production. And absolutely on the whim, absolutely an experiment, no lines of distribution, no idea of what market. They simply liked his voice. They thought it was special. They released a recording at the 1951 Arizona State Fair. They took a booth. They were selling one title, which is a bit inconceivable when you think about it. A lot of Native Americans would go to the state fair, especially back in the 50s, and they started seeing this music, and it was a revelation to them that anybody would want to release an Indian singer on LP, and it was a tremendous commercial validation. And then what happened was a Hopi vendor nearby said, well, why don't you do some Hopi music? And at that point, the chord struck with them that they thought, okay, we'll begin to collect Native American music.
The Boleys were Arizona media pioneers, having created the first recording studio in Phoenix in 1948, then starting both Canyon Records and Canyon Films in 1951.
Mary Boley was one of the few women in the country involved in music production as a label chief, but also as an engineer, and of course doing all the backroom work. So in the unwritten history of media development in Phoenix, the Boleys would have played a very, very crucial role. So they continued to run this Native American operation really as a second business to their main film business. For the next 20 years or so, they would take long vacations in a camper, drive up to the reservations, talk to people. They'd make contact through the tribal chairman, go up to Apache, make recordings there. They also respected the people. They weren't coming in as scholars who were going to record something and then go back to Washington or to university or to New York. They were going to be part of the living community. They had a tremendous respect for the individuals, which, if you think about attitudes in the 1950s, was very cutting edge.
Little by little, a catalog and distribution network began to take shape. But a stroke of luck put them in contact with the man who would become the label's best-known artist, Native American flute player R. Carlos Nakai.
With the arrival of Nakai, who had contacted other labels to carry his self-produced album Changes, Canyon began a crossover into the non-native population, which is much larger. The manager of this retail operation, Bob Nuss, had visited the Herd Fair, where he came across this fellow at a card table selling cassettes of a self-produced album. And we had been looking for a flute player for quite a while, just to round out that end of the collection. And so we immediately contacted RC and said, we want to release this album. When we released it, one of the strange things we discovered that instead of sales spiking initially, then falling off the way sales normally did with an album, they continued to grow quarter after quarter. And we got reports of people playing it in their shops, and then we got reports of people ordering 100 copies at a time, which in this day and age would be large, but back then was unbelievable. It would just sell itself. We also began to discover that the New Age market, the so-called New Age market, was very interested in this very soothing flute sound.
The Canyon Records of today is a far cry from Ray and Mary Boley's early operation. Its new headquarters houses not just the office, but a recording studio, design staff, and a warehouse to ship its 400-plus titles around the world. But the ideals by which the Boleys started Canyon Records remain the label's guiding principles as it moves into the future.
We have a connection that lasts not just one album, but lasts for years, and we hope they last for years. And it's fortunate that it's worked out that way, that we've been, in a way, as Nakai would put it, we've been assimilated back into the Native American community, even though, in a way, we're not Native American in a genetic sense. We certainly are part of that community because of our respect and fairness in dealing with the artist.
Hey, hey,